Okay, welcome everybody to unit number 4. Today we're going to be talking about quality management and inventory management. I think all of this will become very easy to understand after the assignment that you did in your unit number 3. So let's look at a couple things in here. So first of all, let's look at the definition of quality. So ISO 8402, ISO is a regulating body. It's a private company that what they do is they go and inspect a lot of the processes, a lot of your products, your company in general. They audit it, and after the audit, they come with a conclusion of whether your company needs improvement or what you have to do in order to supply complete quality. There's many ISOs according to their different numbers. The most common one is ISO 9001. That's the most common one, but there's a couple of them. So anyways, in this case, what we're talking about in quality is about how achieving the best performance, right, the best quality, in order for us to have higher sales, right? So here we are going to look at this image, and it's a quality loop, and the quality loop is achieved when we look at all the areas of the supply chain. We're going to be looking at the supplier, meaning the supplier has to has the best the best supplies in terms of the materials, the raw materials, the way that they are produced also with high quality. Everything is inspected and tested, and making sure that there are no mistakes and no defects on it. Also the same thing in the packaging, etc., right? Then we have also in the sales and installation and operation and maintenance and so on. In these areas also we need to understand that companies have to have good delivery, because if they provide very good delivery, also there's no complaints from the consumer, and that also helps to improve the quality, because you perceive that whenever the product has any problem, you can look back at the company and say something here is not working, can I refund it, can I change it, and they say yes, sure, no problem, just go ahead with it. That's the case, for example, of Costco, right? Costco has a policy of no questions asked, everything is refundable. So they understand that the products that they are selling are of the highest quality, and if they don't fulfill your needs, then they will change it. So in this case, this is where we have a completion of the loop, because once the consumer starts to get more of your products, we have higher sales, and then of course we can have higher investment into the design, specification, engineering, and the product development. We can engineer products that are of higher quality that can meet the consumer demands. Very good. So now let's go back. Let's look at the benefits and quality benefits or advantages to the buyer. So what happens in here is that when we have higher quality in terms of the supplies, there's removal of uncertainty, because we don't know whether the product will perform or not. We will have certain areas like also we will have the elimination of preparing company specifications. We don't need to be so specific. We already prepared the specification one time, and that is more than enough. Uh, we will save time. We will have more accurate quotations, and in generally there's many of the benefits. So let me zoom down to them, which is minimizing the risk. That is the most important thing when we have higher quality. Improving the performance and productivity, which means higher number in sales, higher numbers on production, less mistakes, and that means less costs. And when you have less costs, that means that you can pass that to the consumer. The consumer either can pay for that quality, or also you can give reduce cost to that. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have with higher quality is that there's implied costs. That means that not because I want to have higher quality means that the product is going to be cheaper. So here we have some of appraisal costs, cost of conformance. So that means we have to inspect them, we have to test them, we have to try them, we have to have extra personnel for be checking the quality of this product. And that means the more people we have to inspect it, the more processes we have for inspection, that's going to add cost to the final product. But in the end, the consumer is going to be willing to pay for it, so that is no problem. We will pass that cost to the consumer as long as there's perceived quality. Okay, very good. So let's continue. Now, when we have the quality, we need to look definitely at the value analysis. So what is the value analysis? So we will have to understand during the whole supply chain, on the whole supply chain, there's knots, right? There's different knots, different knots. What are these knots? So this knot, for example, we have here the logistics. This knot is, for example, the production. This knot is, for example, the sales or the distribution. So when we look at those different nodes or different activities or different steps, we have to make sure that all we are creating value. So what is that we're making that process more efficient. So for example, when we look at the production time, at the production here, for example, in this one, in the production, what I'm helping to have better value is increase productivity, meaning rather than focusing on a creating a lot of products, we create them with quality, and that means later we don't have to check for refunds or returns. So that can increase. Also, if we have higher performance, we can create also higher products. That creates value because we can have a lot of products to be produced. When we say let's look at the distribution, when we look at the distribution and we have value, how can we have value in the distribution? Let's say, for example, we have a very good method for identifying the locations that are more efficient for us to have our sales. So let's say, for example, we have a distribution of our products and we say, if we go first to this store, we spend more gas than going to this store first. So what we do is we leave some of the products here, we leave some of the products there, and then we save money on gas, right? Or in time or in money. Okay, so when we save money because we're doing the process more efficiently, that means that is value, and that's where we're creating value for the company. Sometimes that value is passed to the consumer, sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes the value, for example, when I was talking here about time, right? When we were talking about time and say what happens if, for example, consumers are a certain product is in high demand and they need the product to be supplied as quickly as it can be. So in this case, time is very useful, valuable time. So in this case, value on time because the products can be delivered very quickly, right? Very good. So now that is the value analysis. Now, in the value analysis can come, like I said, value can come in many areas, can come in many different forms. So here we can see, for example, it can be on the back of the house or in some of the primary activities. We can have the firm's structure. It generates value because we have less employees and then the decision taking is faster. Human resource management, it could be that we are more efficient with the humans that we have. We have technology development, we are the most efficient in the technology that we use for production. Or the procurement, we have, like we saw on the Costco case, on the Starbucks case, we saw that the procurement is very efficient because they generate value by stipulating all the rules very, very clearly. So that is how we create the value. Okay, and anyways, there's many activities. This is Porter's value chain. If we can deliver value in absolutely every single front here, that means we have a very, very high quality on a product. Okay, very good. So now we're gonna continue to inventory. So inventory is a very simple thing, is the storage of goods and materials. Why do we store materials? For many reasons. Sometimes if the supplier cannot give us the supply because either, for example, there were some environmental conditions that didn't allow it, or they couldn't produce on time because they had very little workforce or so, right? Or if we have the lead time, sometimes we don't know. The lead time is the time it takes to process something. Maybe that lead time is going to take too slow time, so we need to have some inventory just in case something wrong happens. So anyways, we have many reasons for having extra inventory, but in the end, what we have to understand is that having inventory means money that is not moving. Okay, so whenever we have storage, we have to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Why? For the same reason that we need to sell those products to the consumer. We need them on the shelves. If you have a lot of inventory in the back house, that means nobody's going to purchase it, and that means you are not generating more money. You're not generating profit. So for us, that's important to move the inventory as quickly as possible or have no inventory at all. That is the most important thing of inventory. So now, when we're looking at, well, sorry, when we're looking at inventory management, like I was saying just now, there's a couple things that we have to have inventory management to reduce the number of inventory that we have or know accurately how much inventory we have. There's many companies that are always very lost on how much they have, how much they moved, um, how the product is moving. They have absolutely no idea. And that is very bad. And that is something that, for example, successful companies like Uniqlo, for example, Uniqlo has a very, very, very accurate system of inventory management. They usually use the RFID, which are these tags where with the radio frequency they send through their whole inventory, and they know what they have in hand, what they moved, in what processes, everything. They know completely how the product is moving, and that helps them to understand the whole supply chain in a faster way. They even know, in this case, how many were loaded in the trucks, how many they have in the store, how many have any mistakes or refunds, everything. And that is very important because, like I said, they can look at how to move that inventory as quickly as possible. Even if there's a product that is not very successful, they have a lot of inventory, so they quickly deplete the sales strategy. So now, when we have this management, we have to understand that we have key performance indicators, meaning um, we have measurements to know whether the actions that we're doing are good or not. So in this case, we have to look at KPIs and say whether the process is being fast, service levels are met, meaning we were supposed to produce products at 80%. We are producing at 80%. Why? Because we had enough inventory, or because we didn't have enough inventory, we're not meeting those service levels. We have a lot of a stock turn, in this case, how much is turning over, whether we're selling, receiving, producing, selling, receiving, producing, selling, how often that whole cycle happens. So anyways, we use all these KPIs in the inventory to know whether we are doing well the procurement system, whether we're doing well the manufacturing system, the delivery, and the sales. So in this case, we use those measurements. It's measurements to see whether we do well or not. Okay, very good. So now I realize I say a lot of okay, and I didn't notice until I'm recording myself so many times. So anyways, now we go to factors that will determine the quantity. So in this case, um, when we are managing inventory, having the right amount is critical. Like I said, if we have too much, we have money that is not moving. If we have too little, sometimes we can have delays because we don't have enough product to enough supplies to produce. So we always have to have the right quantity, and we have to do the right forecasting. Forecasting means that we have to understand for the next series, or for the next for the next series of production, we need to look of how much we need so that we're not short and we're not exceeding, right? So for that matter, there's many factors that uh, include the demand, how consumers are wanting that product, whether we have an inventory policy of having a lot because we have a big warehouse, or not having any inventory because we don't have any money. So we just have to work as quickly as we can with the little inventory that we have. We have to look whether the demand is independent or dependent. It depends on us, or it depends on the consumer, or it depends on the supplier, or in the whole supply chain. So we have to look at many different things to determine what is the right quantity, right? So in this case, that is what we call it in economic order. Quantity is a calculations that let us know based on previous periods. We can forecast the following quantity of upcoming periods based on that calculation, and we don't exceed and we're not short. That is just right. Okay, very good. So now let's continue. So now the problem is that when we try to forecast, we're trying to see the future. We're trying to understand whether we had the right or not, and there can be many problems with it. Nowadays, it's much easier than before because we have a lot of intuitive software that can measure and can, with the algorithms, can understand whether the variations are normal or not. But in the end, there's forecasting issues because sometimes, like I said, it is not accurate, or somehow the periods were not very constant, or there were a lot of fluctuations. So as much as we can try to be as accurate as we can, there's always a margin of error. But I can see in the margin of error is better to have a little bit more inventory than having less, because when we have less, that means there's a demand and we didn't have it. But um, when we have too much, also we have money that is not moving. So now why do we need to know inventory? Why inventory management? Why is important? Because like I was saying, inventory is an asset, it's money. We have to, whenever we have inventory, it can increase the cost and reduce profitability. That means less money for the company. So we have to know what we have in inventory and how we can move it. Also, it happens that we may have a lot of inventory. So what are we going to do with it? So we have some strategies like creating sales, so to make the product maybe 30% cheaper. We still have a profit, but we need to move things out of the inventory or the warehouse. Okay, so in this case, like I said, inventory also can enhance flexibility and provide a competitive advantage. That's what happened with Toyota. Toyota has had the policy of no inventory, and that created a very high competitive advantage for them because they were just producing what they needed, the same as Dell computers. Dell computers don't have an exceed of computers. They just do what they have, what they need. But of course, that's a very, very complicated process because you have to have suppliers that can fulfill those orders when you need them. Like I was saying here, of course, here is, see, the cooperation of efficient and effective suppliers. You want to have a just in time, like I said, you want to have that competitive advantage, or just creating or just producing what you need. You have to have a very, very strong communication. That is the case of Walmart. Walmart has this strong communication with their suppliers, and they ensure that they have the right quantities at the right time, and they don't have any excess of inventories. Hence, they can give very, very competitive prices. Okay, very good. So with that, we're done for today. If you have any questions, please send them to me, and through the Q&A or through personal cacao or anything. Stay in contact, and please stay safe. Thank you so much.